This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello there. You're listening to The Morning Break. I am Khanh Duc Kuttig, your host. And today we'll be talking about the elephant in the room.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
At AQA, we work with the UK's largest teacher network to shape the future of assessment. With teachers for students, we ask questions today that matter tomorrow.
Get a head start on your fresh start with Bloomsbury Education. With 30% off all our books till the end of September, this back-to-school sale is your chance to stock up on CPD titles, classroom resource banks, lesson ideas, and practical solutions to every teacher's pain points. Browse titles on sale from the Like a Ninja series, The Week Junior, and Let's Talk Picture Books, perfect for the new school year. From leadership to inclusivity and maths to mental health, Bloomsbury Education has books for every step of your teaching journey. Welcome back to school at bloomsbury.com/back-to-school sale.
Over 7,500 primary schools are already using Kapow Primary to boost confidence in teaching foundation subjects. Our expert-created curriculum planning, lessons and CPD are here to support and upskill you, whether you're a subject lead or classroom teacher. If you've got knowledge gaps in art, music, computing or beyond, we've got you covered. Head to kapowprimary.com and empower your teaching today.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles.
Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to the show. I've got a story to tell you before we begin. For those of you who are in English language teaching, or even if you're not in English language teaching, but you have friends who are in English language teaching, this might sound familiar. So a couple of weeks ago, I met a friend whom I hadn't seen in a very long time, and I asked her, I said, hey, how things? Not seen you in a while. How are you doing? And my friend said, well, yeah, I had a really quiet summer. And, me, the teacher who's in full-time permanent employment, goes, yeah, really? So you enjoy yourself? And my friend said, yeah, well, it's nice to be off in the summer. But then the thing is, as people are going back to work now, I've not got very much really, and this gig that I had lined up, the people who were supposed to give me the contract, they pulled out, and I've got this other gig. I've got a short-term gig now. I'm teaching a class at my local college, but it's only 10 weeks and it's 2 hours. So that's really not cool, and I'm really worried because Christmas is coming, and I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. I don't know what I've got nothing lined up for next year. So I just wanted to start with that story, and I'd like you to just, let that swirl in your head for a while. And I'll move on to something else now. So if you're in the English language teaching scene, right, you've heard stories like that. And you've also probably seen discussions on inclusivity in materials design, sustainability in ELT, translanguaging, language coaching, the native, non-native speaker debate. But really, what I wanted to talk to you about today is what I started the show with, that story about my friend. I want to tackle together with Bruno, and maybe Sir Harrington the Brave might even want to join the conversation. I want to tackle this elephant in the ELT room. And no, it's not the native, non-native speaker issue, even though that seems to be making the rounds at the moment. It's something totally different. Now, before we begin, for those of you who are listening live, put a comment. Okay, I've got a couple of questions for you. Put a comment if you're listening back, whether you're in your car, doing the ironing, or doing the dishes, just nod. All right. So nod or comment if you started teaching English as a temporary job, either on holiday or as your gap year. Right? Now, nod or comment if you regularly post on social media or wherever you float around, open for work types of messages, open for work. Okay. Now, nod or comment if you've worked your way up the career ladder on your own. So not through employer-based promotions or CPD, like you've had to do it yourself. You've had to go out there, look for your own CPD, upskill yourself, find your niche. You had to do that all on your own. Okay. Now, nod or comment if you've moved from project to project rather than stayed for years as a teacher in one place. And then nod if you worry about work, about your next contract, and even worse, getting paid on time. Yeah. Now this, dear listeners, is that elephant in the room. Why are we not talking about it? I think the only time I actually saw it, which is why I decided to have this conversation, was when Bruno actually, put a comment out somewhere about, the gig economy, right? This is the elephant in the room, not all teaching rooms, because, you talk to people and they go, hey, what you do? And you go, oh, I'm an English language teacher. And they go, oh, right, really? And the image they have in their head is, you in some, as so Harrington says, in some fantasy land, you've got this lovely classroom, you've got CPD, you've got a permanent contract, you get paid on time, you've got unions, right? But no, that's a different teaching room altogether. We're talking about the ELT room, and this is what we're talking about today. So Bruno, my guest, and I will be highlighting how for many ELT professionals, they work in what is known as the gig economy. And hello, Bruno, let me unmute you there. Bruno, welcome. Hey, Bruno, did you mute yourself again? Stop, don't press any buttons. Now, Bruno, I can't unmute you, but can you say hello? And if not, we might need to have Sir Harry jump in for us. Bruno, you're connected, but your mic does not seem to be working. You might have to exit the show. Excellent. We have our hero now. Thank you for joining us. Last minute, very spontaneous.
Hello.
What's the gig economy?
Well, the thing is, for me, when I think about it, it's a tricky one because it goes beyond simply teaching as well. It goes into all areas of ELT. It feels like, and yeah, I know lots of people who are struggling with various aspects of this gig economy. So they'll get their private lessons because working in an academy maybe doesn't suit their hours properly, and then it just becomes so unstable. There are no guarantees of work, and their private student won't be able to attend that week last minute, and without any contracts written up, then the teacher's left with no money for that student, and it can become really worrying.
Yeah. I mean, I looked up, a definition. It's not that I didn't know what a gig economy was, but my understanding of gig, first of all, minus the word economy. My understanding of gig is from years ago in a past life when I was working in a pub, and you'd have, the musician or the band, they'll come in and they'll do, and that's where I think first learned the word gig, right? They'll come in and do their gig and they get paid for that gig. So it's kind of
Exactly.
freelance work, right?
Yeah.
It's freelance work. It's not permanent. There's no pub owner that says, we've got this band and we're going to keep them for the month and they're going to do 4 shows and we're going to pay them for the month, cover their insurance, make sure, they're all, you know, health and safety laws are covered, and that they're in a union. No, it's not that. It's just you get paid for that job you do. And like you say,
Exactly. It's like a
it's
0 hours
not just
Hi, could I
contract.
teaching.
join now?
Now
Oh, I
you
can hear you,
go
Bruno.
for it.
So I'm going to leave.
Oh, excellent.
Oh
Okay. Oh, don't
no, you
leave.
can have
Why
part
would
of the
you?
conversation.
There's only enough space for one beautiful bearded man in here right now.
Oh, come on. That's very kind of you, but you should definitely stay, Harry. Oh, I'm
What
so
I'll
glad
do
that the
is
microphone's working out.
I'll sit in the background and I'll let you introduce yourself, because this is your moment. So I'm going to disappear into the background and listen to what you lovely people have got to say.
Oh, well,
All right,
thank
then.
you for jumping in there. Thanks so much. So,
Thank you,
Bruno,
Harry. Thank you
welcome.
for the rescue.
Not a problem at
Hi.
all.
Good morning, Bruno.
I'm
Hi,
glad it's
how are
working
you?
out. Good morning. I'm good. I'm good. I just woke up, made myself a cup of coffee. Getting ready for my gig classes, as you mentioned.
Your gig classes.
But
That's a tough
in all
one, isn't it?
fairness,
Yeah.
it is. But in all fairness, I've managed to build a very small business. I don't want to sound like as if I have this multi-million-dollar company running in the background.
Oh, so you're
But
not
my
kind of
students are no, no, not yet, as as of now. Um, but my students are very loyal, and uh, I like to think that I have this online small school for students and teachers, and I managed to escape a little bit um, this gig economy that we're going to talk about. I still do some freelance work, which
mm-hmm.
um, as you mentioned, getting paid on time. Some clients certainly pay on time. Some of them take 90 days or 100 days to pay you, um, which is problematic, especially for people who I have a couple of friends who live off of freelance work, right? So they live off of gigs.
Yeah.
Um, and I find it amazing how these people manage to organize their bills and to make sure that they get paid enough money uh, at the right times, at the right intervals, to be able to pay rent and mortgage or uh,
Yeah.
utilities
Yeah.
every month. Yeah, but
Yeah.
definitely.
I mean, it does take a long time to get yourself out
Mm,
of being entirely, in the gig economy, in ELT. I mean, I know that there are people who like it. So this friend, not necessarily the gig economy, but there's the freedom that comes with being able to choose your contracts, being able to choose your hours, choosing, not just when you work and who you work for, but where you work and how you work. I mean, I would dearly
mm.
love to teach in my PJs all day, but I go to a building, I think years ago in one job, I did not go to work in my PJs, but my line manager said that I should dress appropriately in accordance to the salary I'm paid. Well, I thought,
Oh
what?
wow.
Not paid a lot, but okay, fine, if you put it that way. I had a full-time job, and I was
Mm.
supposed to wear shoes rather than slippers. And I just thought, well, if my students are coming in from their accommodation in their PJs, but
Mm.
um,
No, I mean, why not? Right?
so right, but beside the point. I mean, I can understand. You know, there's a beauty, and there's a certain freedom in being able to set your hours and things like that. But um, it comes with so much risk, and I think people may be willing to take risks, but what I see is actually quite horrendous that gives this ELT teaching a bad name is just
Hmm.
people being taken advantage of, right? Like you're
Yes.
saying,
Oh, definitely.
you know,
Yeah.
Bruno, I think many of my peers who don't have the luxury of being in a permanent full-time contract like me, or running a successful online teaching business like you, is that they're not protected. They are not
Yeah.
protected. I hear people I've seen in the last 3 months, definitely at least three people
Hmm.
who've posted a message saying, "Oh, my contract got cancelled. I'm open. I'm open for work. Help me out." Or
Hmm.
like you say, people not being paid. My husband's a freelance English teacher as well, and when he sends his bills out in Germany, we have a law that you're supposed to pay your bill. So if anybody writes you a bill, it's paid
Hmm.
within 2 weeks
You're supposed
being
to.
issued.
Uh,
You're supposed to, right? Yeah, 2 weeks. Again, fantasy land.
see.
And it's big companies. It's not small people who are struggling for money. These companies,
Hmm.
they're big companies, and they think, oh, you're just a small guy. Come on, it's only 400 euros for English lessons. Come on, you wait. And and and
Yeah.
many times, these colleagues of mine, of ours, they don't always know how to deal with these companies, chase up on bills.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um
And I get the feeling that now, with this gig economy, I used to work for schools, and I was very happy working for schools for a very long time. I get the feeling this, at least here in Brazil, this big shift into gig economy happened at around some 10 years ago, or started to happen some 10 years ago. I worked at a fantastic school, um,
hmm
and but things have been changing so much. Pay has been changing so much that nowadays in São Paulo, one of the, I think it's the largest city in Brazil, and coincidentally, where the cost of living is one of the highest in the country. The
hmm
average hourly pay for a teacher is 25 reais an hour, and that translates to around $4 an hour.
oh gosh.
Um, so um, you either get pushed into a not so great job, or a bad job in a school, where you're gonna be told things like dress as we're paying you, even though
I'll go my slippers then. I'll go
even
my
though they're
slippers.
not really. Yeah, as Harry said, like if my boss told me that, I'd be going naked. Um, and you get so many working hours, and you have to teach so many hours, and of course, we're all teachers. We know that there's the extra work around teaching, right? So
Yeah.
meetings with parents and planning lessons and correcting stuff. That
Yeah.
these $4 an hour, they turn into three or two, depending on.
Exactly.
Um, and I get the feeling that teachers get pushed out, like teachers who, um, not even. I used to say that it's teachers who get qualified, who get certifications, and engage in CPD. They kind of get pushed out of the market because you get the feeling that the market doesn't want a qualified teacher. That there is this. I get this feeling that there is this pact of mediocrity, that if the teacher is able to mildly cope with a lesson, with a class, and teaching with the school made materials, that's about it. That's about the expectations that the school has on the teacher. And then everyone else who qualifies and do not want to be paid $5 an hour, $6 an hour, where do they go? Where do these people go?
Mm.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
there are some very high paying schools here and there, but there's just um, not enough of those
Yeah.
schools. Have you
Well, you.
noticed something similar where you live?
Yeah, I mean, definitely we have that. Okay, we're not on the $4 an hour range, but so a couple of things I want to add. 20 years ago, when I lived in Germany first, a particular language school I knew was paying 15 euros an hour. They're still paying 15 euros an hour.
Oh,
Right. No,
yeah.
nobody can survive on that. And that doesn't even include, and similar to you, it doesn't include, your taxes or your health insurance. So a teacher, and I think
Hmm.
somebody calculated that out for us, a teacher who was earning 15 euros an hour, your take home in Germany would be down to 7. And you'd have and
Oh
like you
wow,
said, you have that
and a
pre
half.
and post prep, right? You have that pre and
Hmm.
post prep. And many of these schools, like what you're saying, don't. Yeah, same here, Harry. Many of these schools, they don't want qualified teachers because, to them, even with a CELTA, you're overqualified. They want the young
Uh-huh.
person from somewhere who's who's just here for a
Who's been
career.
to Disneyland
and and
once, and then
and
you're you're
and
ready
like
to
you were
teach.
saying, right? Yeah, and like you were saying, as long as you can work with the teaching materials we provide you or whatever, yeah, you're fine. Just go into the classroom, entertain the clients. Anybody else who's coming in with any kind of qualification, oh my god, you're too qualified. I think this is
Hmm.
one of those few jobs, and many language schools, I think, if you come in with a CELTA, you're just overqualified for them, right? So
Yeah,
so they that's just taking advantage of people.
it
and
is.
and then
It is, and I think it's putting a lot of faith on the materials themselves, as if the materials teach the lesson, right? I've heard of a couple of schools saying that their materials are teacher proof, meaning that
mm,
any person can teach using those materials. So I get the feeling teachers for some schools, of course, they have this they've been downgraded to materials users and not really teachers anymore, kind of like
yeah.
instructors. Here in Brazil, we have this difference between a language instructor and a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
where a language instructor is not uh, protected the same
Whoops, I think you.
legislation rights as a teacher. So many schools are hiring teachers as instructors. Am I
mm,
back?
I think yeah, you're back. I think you cut off for a while, but
Hi.
but I get what you say. I
Okay,
mean,
good. Okay.
you have some big, and I think this is the world over. You have, I know definitely in Germany, two big language school chains, right? Franchises.
Hmm.
And they say they have the materials. They say you don't need to know anything else. We'll give you the materials and you just go in and you just teach that. And you're sorted. You've got your lesson. And
Hmm.
and that's why, they pay so poorly, because they think, well, you don't have to do much work. We're giving you the stuff. It's what you mentioned, Bruno, teacher proof
Hmm.
or, foolproof. You go in, you teach that. And what does the poor teacher do? The poor teacher thinks, okay, I'll take that first because I want that teaching experience, right? You can't, it's difficult to go into the more reputable, big name, proper. probably it's a bit relative, but other schools, right? So you want to build your
Mm,
experience, right? You want to build your CV. So you go and do that. But because the pay is so low, right, you take all the hours that you could possibly get just to make ends meet. I mean, I cannot imagine, how many hours a teacher in Brazil would need to do to survive on $4 an hour. I
yeah.
mean,
That would be
15 hours
about
an hour.
44 hours a week. That's 44 hours. That's
Yeah, and you
full
can't
time.
how
And teaching, that's 44 hours in class, right? Plus the extra
yeah,
work. So it's around 60.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's just and that so many of my friends that's also what I used to do when I was younger, back in the day. I took on a lot of hours because I had to make ends meet, but then the trouble was I'd be taking on hours in different places, because there's no school that would ever give you, like, no one would say, okay, I'll give you 20 hours. And even if they did,
Mhm.
I need a 40-hour week to pay my rent. So it would mean 20 hours here in this place and 20 hours in this place. And it's not just the language schools, it's the universities. I know so many people working at universities that don't have fixed jobs, and they're usually guaranteed, like, they're told, oh yeah, you'll have that same class next semester. But then in Germany, if you
Mhm.
teach at the university, you don't get paid till the end of the semester. So you're working 15 weeks. And okay, I know a few friends who go, yes, and then I'm rich at the end of the term. But
Oh my,
what
you
should you
get
have
paid
seen?
once a semester.
You get paid at the end of the semester. It doesn't include your insurance. Um, what else? It doesn't
Wow.
include your insurance. You've got no union protection and whatever not. Um, And then they also tell
Oh
you, they
my,
usually
poor
say, well,
teachers.
you're guaranteed the course next semester. But at the same time, if they don't have the registration numbers, they could tell you a week before the course starts or is supposed to start. They go, oh, we can't get the numbers, we're canceling the course.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And just like that, right? Can I tell you about an experience I had a couple some time ago?
Go for it. Go
I
for it.
worked for this school, which was a project-based school, and it sounded like the dream school for me. So it was an anti-racist school. It was a very inclusive school. It was a left-leaning school. And the thing that caught my attention the most was that by the end of every lesson, every single lesson, students would get into the school's app because they had the app installed in their cell phones, the school app, and students would evaluate. They would assess. They would evaluate the lesson, given it from 0 to 5 stars, kind of like you do when you order food in iFood or
Right.
you get an
Yeah.
Uber,
Yeah.
and students would leave you a comment on that evaluation, and it was interesting to see how when you need to discipline students, they're talking, and then you had to come to them and say, hey, this is not the right time to be playing or whatever. They would evaluate you poorly in that lesson because they did not like being called attention or being disciplined in the
All
lesson.
right.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, teachers had this, and this evaluation, this scoring of teachers would directly impact how often the coordinators would come to you and talk to you and have these conversations saying, hey, your students have been evaluating your lessons poorly, or why did this student evaluate your class as a 2 instead of a 4 or a 5? And then you would have to explain what happened for you to having received that low, that those 2 stars. So it kind of felt like um, being an Uber driver being
Yeah,
evaluated by the customer at the end of the ride, and
you're at the
having
mercy.
to please, and having to please students, whatever happens. So if students asked for, I don't know, a gaming class and you said no, twice in a row, they would give you a 2, but they would give you a 3-star
Oh,
for that lesson because you did not comply with their request.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. As Harry says, that's madness. I mean, you're at the mercy. You're at the mercy of the student, of the customer, of the client, right? And I
hmm,
mean, it's not. I have a different experience, but something that here living in Germany, many of my teacher friends copped on really quickly. Like you said, you'd have a language school, and that language school would have a coordinator. So a lot of the places that we worked at, they'd have, the business owner or the franchise owner, and they get the contracts in, and then they'd let the coordinator know, so we've got all these contracts, you divvy them up amongst the teachers. And very quickly, many of my fellow teachers and I realized you just have to be really nice and really sweet, because you were at the mercy of the coordinators. So, and and my husband would say, "Oh yeah, 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 that's the coordinator. You speak really nicely to her." And I used to wonder why he was, buttering up these people and going, "Oh, did you get a new haircut? Oh, you look lovely." And I'm like, "Oh, come on,
oh
really?
dear
You're
Lord.
really, oh, you know, oozing with honey here." And he goes, "Yeah, but you've got to treat them really well, or you've got to be memorable, or they're not going to give you those classes." So there's no, things
That's
aren't being
horrible.
given out on merit, or based on maybe client and teacher compatibility, or teacher's interest or expertise. So I mean, that's just ridiculous,
Yeah.
you know.
It's
um
simply based on compliance, right? So how
yeah.
compliant are you with everything, with the system that has been built? And this is another thing that happens in the gig economy. It's what people call the feast and famine. Um, how can I call this? Like maybe a phenomenon or
Okay.
living living stage, which is there's I think it's very similar to what you describe in university professors who only get paid at the end, right? So there is the
Yeah.
feast at the end of the contract, but then throughout the whole contract it's famine, right? So you
Yeah.
you have to be able to deal with these moments of no
Drought.
labor and no work. Yeah, exactly. These moments of drought, and be always on the lookout for an oasis of. My wife has an experience with this multinational company who provides exams all around the world, and she was working
Hmm.
with exams in Japan, if I'm not mistaken. And she had a couple of like a week of training to be able to deal with the exam. She was being trained as an examiner, and
Right.
the promise was that if if she assessed, I don't know, 200 students, she would be paid for the training sessions that she
Hmm.
took, plus the 200 students. She took the
Right.
training, and what they did was very similar to what you described. Instead of allocating the hours, so here's 200 students for you, here's 200 students for the next for the next assessor, here's 200 for the other assessor. The company released all students as in a bank,
Right.
and allowed the assessors to catch them as quickly as
Oh
possible.
gosh.
So some assessors who were probably in this famine stage of their gig
Yeah.
economized lives, they pounced at 300, 400, 500 students
Yeah.
before my wife could even get into the work. And she had like 2 weeks to cover all 200 students. So since she's an organized person, she said, okay, so 2 weeks for 200 students, that's 100 students a week. So that's, I don't know, 10, 20 students a day. So she had her organization to fit in between her classes and all. And she couldn't examine 20 students. And then the company said, well, since you did not examine, since you did not assess the 200 students that you promised, quotation marks there, we're not going to pay you for the training either. So she wasn't paid for the 200 students that she was promised she would have. And she was not paid for the training that she took and the hours that she
Yeah.
took during the training. And we went to look into this, that there was even a news report by a very reputable newspaper, international newspaper, talking about this situation, the 0-hour contracts.
Right. Did you finish there, or did you just die on me? Whoops. I think you just disconnected on me. But the last thing I heard from you, Bruno, was the 0 hours
It's kind
contract.
of immoral. It's within the boundaries of law that we're allowed to do that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I
I'm
think
sorry.
companies think that. Sorry. Can you hear
Can
me?
you hear
I
me?
think companies think. I can hear you now. You were talking about 0 hours contract. I think
Uh,
companies think
KD, am I
that
back?
just by providing you something. Yes, you're back. You are back. Let's continue. Companies think that just because they provide you with something that has the word contract in it, that they're covered and they can do anything for you. Not for you, but with you. And I see we've moved on, not just in ELT teaching, classroom teaching, that we have this gig economy, but also another aspect in ELT, which is examining. And I know people who've had the similar experience. They pay for the training themselves, right, to become examiners, to
Hmm.
qualify as examiners, and then they get. I know somebody who got a whole bunch of exams. These were written exams, the written papers to correct. Now, this person had to do. They would always get. The exams were taken in Hungary, so the students were based in Hungary, and this person got the exam sent to them in Germany, and they get them on a Thursday, and they'd have to return them, send them back to the examination board on Tuesday. So it'd
Oh
come
Lord.
in by UPS late on Thursday. So you'd have Friday, which is a working day. And if you
Hmm.
wanted the contract, you'd have to work Saturday and Sunday. Monday, you've got to be done. Monday evening, pop it back to UPS so that it be, with this exam board on Tuesday. And the person would be getting like about 80 exam scripts to mark,
Oh Lord.
like over the weekend. And if
Hmm.
you're in a gig economy, if you're freelance and you rely on the work, you do it. And initially the pay was, fair enough. The person had a contract, they had to sign a contract that they'd be doing this, and they were paid X amount per hour, which was actually good. So the company had estimated that you would be doing X number of scripts per hour, and therefore, you'd be getting that much. And the person I
Hmm.
knew would always take, put in for the maximum. But then the company changed their contract, and the company said, we're going to pay you just per script. And that was down to €3 per exam script. If you
Oh
think
Lord.
about it, and you've got 90
Hmm.
scripts, that's €270 only. if yeah, I always say I'm not a math teacher, I can't do math, but if I'm correct, 9 times 3 is 27, 90 scripts, 270 euros, when in the past, for that same number of scripts, working the weekend, my friend could earn at least 500 euros for weekend work.
No.
You know,
Mhm.
I think we're going to talk about more areas of the gig economy in ELT, but first let's listen to some education news like now.
At AQA, we work with the UK's largest teacher network to shape the future of assessment. With teachers for students, we ask questions today that matter tomorrow.
Get a head start on your fresh start with Bloomsbury Education. With 30% off all our books till the end of September, this back-to-school sale is your chance to stock up on CPD titles, classroom resource banks, lesson ideas, and practical solutions to every teacher's pain points. Browse titles on sale from the Like a Ninja series, The Week Junior, and Let's Talk Picture Books. Perfect for the new school year. From leadership to inclusivity and maths to mental health, Bloomsbury Education has books for every step of your teaching journey. Welcome back to school at bloomsbury.com/back-to-school sale.
Over 7,500 primary schools are already using Kapow Primary to boost confidence in teaching foundation subjects. Our expert-created curriculum planning, lessons and CPD are here to support and upskill you, whether you're a subject lead or classroom teacher. If you've got knowledge gaps in art, music, computing or beyond, we've got you covered. Head to kapowprimary.com and empower your teaching today.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
SEND funding is in the news again, as Schools Week's Freddie Whitaker talks about funding rates and inflation after a report from a committee of MPs found that funding rates for pupils with SEND would be around 40% higher today if they had kept pace with inflation. The amount of notional funding in a mainstream school's budget for delivering SEND support has remained at £6,000 since the system was reformed in 2013, as has the £10,000 base rate special schools receive for each pupil. Now, a report from the All-Party Parliamentary Group for SEND warns that despite increases in funding, the system remains fragmented and under-resourced. It goes on to say the lack of inflationary increases in budgets have resulted in the increasing and earlier pursuit of education, health and care plans, and that this in turn has led to the subsequent increase in high needs top-up. According to the report, the notional funding, if it reflected inflation, would now be worth £8,386 and special school place funding would be worth £13,998. The group has called on government to base funding allocations on robust assessments of need. Government will set out SEND reforms in a white paper later this term. In a linked article, the recently appointed Minister of State for School Standards is reported as telling MPs that the voices of children, their families and teachers will be at the forefront of SEND reforms. Georgia Gould told MPs pupils shouldn't have to travel miles for support, early interventions for support should be prioritised, and there will always be a legal right to additional support. Full details of Ms Gould's comments can be found on the Schools Week's website. The Times Educational Supplement magazine says head teachers in Wales are to get protected leave during weekends and holidays. The article covers comments by the Welsh Education Secretary, who says leaders must be given uninterrupted rest after years of campaigning by the union NAHT Cymru. Lynn Neagle has written to all local authorities asking them to ensure that school leaders are not contacted during weekends and holidays unless there is a particularly pressing need. There is no indication that this move will be replicated in other parts of the UK. The letter says contact at these times should be in exceptional circumstances which require head teachers' urgent attention. Laura Dole of NEHT Cymru said it had been a long campaign for protection because over time we have seen mission creep, with leaders' goodwill too often abused and frequent work outside of regular hours being taken for granted as somehow normal. She added that leaders needed to be well rested so as to be in a better place to provide the first-rate education children deserve. Union leaders in Scotland and England said they were watching the situation with interest and described the moves as promising. Other organisations such as Head Teachers Roundtable and the charity Education Support also noted that any policy to improve work-life balance should be welcomed, but noted it should apply to all school staff, not just leaders. Full details and further comment on TES Magazine online. Schools Week also reports on comments from Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson on the subject of parental engagement. In a speech at an event run by the charity Parentkind, Ms Phillipson said parents needed an effective route to make their voices heard, but noted that the current complaint system is not working as well as it could, either for parents or for schools. She said the government would continue to guard against mistreatment of school staff and that there can never be any place for abuse. A survey by Parentkind has recently suggested that 2 million children are unhappy at school and almost 1 million feel unsafe. Phillipson told the audience at the event that the results told her that we need change and that parents must be partners in that change. She went on to say, our school's white paper will set out plans to establish clear expectations of schools for parent engagement, and that these expectations would be co-created with schools and parents themselves. Phillipson's comments acknowledged concerns of leaders that parents sometimes expect updates on evenings and over weekends, and that parents make complaints to multiple public bodies, including the Department for Education, Ofsted and the Teacher Regulation Authority, all requiring separate responses. Full details of the speech on Schools Week. Finally, the BBC has covered interviews with young people as the COVID-19 inquiry prepares to look at the impact the pandemic had on children and young people. The report for the inquiry includes individual accounts of 600 people who were under 18 during the pandemic. The accounts on the BBC website include happy memories of time spent with family, the impact of school disruption, social isolation and, for some, bereavement. The inquiry itself will start hearing evidence at the end of this month. Some individuals who spoke to the BBC about the pandemic and how it had affected them had some saying they felt something had been stolen from them during a life-changing set of circumstances, whilst others felt the need to catch up on lost moments. Full details of individual stories can be found online. This has been Teachers Talk Radio News with Jo Fox.
And welcome back. I have got Bruno, who's joined us from Brazil. Bruno is my guest today, and we're discussing the elephant in the room, ELT as gig economy. We've not got much longer now, but there are two things that I want to discuss with you, Bruno. So we talked about,
All right.
how classroom teaching is, very much a gig economy, and then we have, with teachers who are also examiners or moderators or, test raters. We've got publishing as well, teachers who work on publishing projects. That's also, very contract based, and people go from, project to project, or, juggle 3 projects at one time. And, from the outside looking in, you'll have people who are not familiar with the market with ELT who go, wow, isn't that great? You get to set your own hours, you're your own boss, and things like that. Right? Yeah, you see, you're laughing already. Many folks don't realize
It's
how
beautiful.
problematic this is. Yeah, it is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just, I
You
miss
know.
the days of just surviving on spaghetti and ketchup, right? Um,
Dear
but so
God.
so people don't realize how problematic this is, and I'd like you to highlight for us, please, from based on what you know, based on the people you've interacted with. What are some of the issues you've heard people talk about or even experience yourself, apart, in addition to, not being paid on time, not being paid fairly? What other
Mhm.
issues? Or
I think one of the biggest challenges in the gig economy is getting in the market and getting contracts, right? Because
mm,
the moment you have a bunch of contracts and you're working on two, three, four contracts at the same time for a couple of months, you kind of not escape the gig economy, but you don't feel its impact that much, I would say. But these are, but
right,
this is for a selected few who are already in the market, who already have a name in the market, and who are able to get these contracts, right?
it's a
So my
privilege then.
first experience, it is definitely a privilege. Nowadays, I probably work on four kind of short-term to mid-term contracts a year, and I think I've been in the ELT industry for some time now, for around 15 years. But
Mm,
my suggestion is, as long as you can, try to get a couple of private students, because I get the feeling that private students, they tend to be um, a somewhat stable source of income. This is what I've been doing today. I have my private students. I work with two students or one-to-one classes, and these form my main income. This is how I pay my
mm-hmm,
rent. This is how I pay for my child's school. And
yeah,
whatever contracts I manage to get, um, they are directed to a savings account, especially due to the unpredictable nature of these contracts. So I get the feeling I cannot count on this money, you know?
yeah, yeah,
So uh, pretty much what I do is, uh, if it comes, it's extra money. So I have to direct my efforts to make sure I make ends meet with my teaching,
mm,
with my students, and then
yeah,
having these extra contracts. But definitely it's not easy. You have to learn how to advertise in social media. You have to learn how to deal with LinkedIn or how to deal with Instagram. And personally, I I don't think Instagram is great. I'm not sure I like the Instagram genre. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I mean,
and
I think the
yeah,
thing is, sorry to interrupt, but
no,
that's
sure.
what it is with the gig economy, isn't it? I mean, you're just, especially for someone who's not necessarily established yet on the scene. I'm gonna just call it on the scene now.
Hmm.
They're going to be trying all sorts of different platforms because they have to market themselves, and that's the thing. You have to market yourself, and like you were saying, unless you're somebody who's already established, you've got your name out there. Yeah, you'll always have excuse me, you'll always have this lull in the year, these quiet times, right? And
Hmm.
like you say, if you manage your income well, and you put money aside in a separate bank account. I know teachers in Germany, because they don't pay their tax as they go. They have to do tax returns at the end of the financial year, and then they get they have to pay a whole lump sum in tax, sometimes up to 10,000 euros. So what a lot of teachers I know do is that they put whatever percentage aside a month from whatever they earn, and that's their, that is their potential tax money, what they have to pay in taxes. But you've got to be able to do that. The thing is, if you earn so little, yeah, it's just easier. I mean, you're going to need every bit of money you have. The other thing I find problematic, or I know teachers who find problematic with private students, is that, well, I don't know in other parts of the world, but like in Germany, private students, they tend to take advantage of the teachers. So you could have a contract with them
Oh
and you
my.
could say 24-hour cancellation, but they'll call you on the morning and they go, oh no, I'm so sick and I can't. And you're like, you feel sorry and you're like, do I? And then you have those who think, well, I'm coming to you one to one. I'm a private student. You really shouldn't be charging me 50 euros an hour, right? So
Yeah.
that's just, you know problematic as well. And like you're saying, I mean, Harry has one at 7 p.m. You've also got to kind of like, juggle your time and fit them in. And then if you really need
Yeah.
the work and you really need the money, sometimes you just do almost everything, isn't it? And
And,
every
and
teacher.
it's a whole set of skills that is not part of teaching skills, right? It's
Yeah,
managing contracts and negotiating hourly pay, and
yeah,
negotiating the length of the contract, and making sure that students pay you on time, and
yeah,
uh, I don't know, this marketing skills as well. It's yeah, it's not an easy
yeah.
business. But the thing is,
It's
it
serious
seems
adulting.
to me, yeah, it is. It is, right. Like setting aside money for taxes, as you mentioned, right.
Yeah.
But I get the feeling, here in Brazil we have this um, phenomenon that we call them salinhas, which is well, in English that would be like a tiny classroom, which is
Hmm.
a teacher cooperatives, teachers who get together, and not only English teachers. We get there is a salinha around the corner of my street that is math, Portuguese, geography, and history. So these teachers, they got together and they have
Hmm.
this tiny school for after hour students, and then
Right, right.
they
After
manage
school,
to
school.
yeah, after school hours. So I think cooperatives are a way to go, especially in our field. So I have a tiny cooperative with my wife. My wife is also an English teacher.
Hmm.
So I think it's a way for qualified teachers, for teachers who engage in professional development and who want to escape the $4 an hour market,
Yeah,
to kind of build their own thing. Unfortunately, I love working for schools. I used to love working for schools, but I just don't see that happening anytime soon with the wages we currently have.
yeah. With the wages, the type of contracts teachers get, the lack of job security. I mean, I know that a lot of, I can understand, like with corporate clients, they only want somebody, say, for the duration because they're worried about. I mean, in Germany, ancillary labor costs are really, really high. So, for a company to take somebody on a permanent contract, it really would have to be worth it. And they don't know, for example, whether, if they introduce English language classes as part of professional development for their staff, how good the uptake is going to be. So they might be investing in
Hmm.
somebody for, say, 6,000 euros a month, right? But then you'd run all these classes and nobody attends. So, that would be a loss for them. Um,
Hmm.
though I have seen adverts from companies that have said, "Oh, we've got this 2-year contract. We'd like somebody to come and teach us English, or teach our staff English." I've seen at least one language school in Germany that's got 2 or 3 permanent full-time positions. So
Mm,
I don't understand why. I mean, even if you're giving somebody, a 20-hour contract, I mean, you get staff loyalty that way. And you've got
mhm,
teachers who come in on time, maybe they come in better prepared, because they know that you're paying them a fair wage, a fair salary. And money isn't the only issue, or juggling your time. I know teachers who suffer from so much stress, right? Their mental health suffers,
mhm,
because
yeah,
they're living so precariously. Like you say,
mhm,
famine and feast, right? Periods of drought, and
mhm.
then, you know, um, and before we close the show, though, in your opinion, why is this the elephant in the room? We talk about so many other issues. On social media, we've got, the native, non-native speaker debate. We've got, different camps talking about AI use, or language coaching. Is it really teaching? Is it not? But this whole thing about English language, our profession as the gig economy, nobody seems to want to talk about it. We've got no unions. We've I think we need to mobilize. So why do you think this is the
Agreed.
elephant in the room, Bruno? Why is this the elephant
Because
in
I
the room?
think I get the feeling that teachers are, um, and I don't mean to blame this on teachers, definitely not. But I feel that we've been in this precarity for so long now that teachers have become afraid of speaking up and losing the little that they have. So
Mhm.
I think this has become such a difficult field money wise, that and people don't want to talk about money because they're afraid that they might sound as if they want to unionize, and as if that's a bad thing, right? So
Yeah.
it's very difficult to hear. Actually, in this year's Brest TESOL International Conference, there was a plenary speaker who addressed precarity in the field, and I was very surprised that she did on the main stage. I
Hmm.
definitely think we should talk about money and precarity and uh, life conditions for teachers, because even though money is not all there is, sure, but it's a big part of our lives, right? We have to be able to
Yeah.
afford our stuff, and uh, I think money is tied to this mental health crisis that we're facing. So it's even ridiculous in my perspective for schools who pay as little as $4 an hour to host meetings and webinars and talks about mental health when they are the ones causing the mental health issues, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'm gonna mute you, Bruno, and Harry, Sir
Okay.
Harrington. Why do you think this is an elephant in the room? Why are we not talking about it? Why are we, I mean, native speaker, non-native speaker, that debate, that's so easy. Everybody, has something to say about it. But here, talking about our well-being, our career stability, people are like, oh no, don't.
Oh, I know. I think it's something that has been kind of there in the background for a long time. The idea of teacher well-being is, there are a few people I know that talk about it, but it's not really enough, and that's because I'm involved in this and very much into it. It's not something that's up there and out and about because as you mentioned, we've got AI that we can talk about, or there's some crazy people going on about the environment all the time. So it just seems to have been something that's kind of put on the back burner, and something I popped in the comments there, that it feels like there are people playing on these insecurities of often freelancers and people in this gig
Mm-hmm.
economy, saying, oh, I can see that you should be earning more money, you need to earn more money, and the way to do that is to to pay €2,000 to do my course, and I'll teach you how to charge more money. And it feels almost contradictory to me. Teaching people how they can charge more money. It's I don't know. It's not the easiest thing to do in the world, particularly if you're giving private classes. Especially if you're in an area where it's not full of affluent people. And as teachers, we like to help people who need help. So why is it the elephant in the room? I'm not sure. I think we've got a few elephants in the room, to be honest. And yeah, I want to get sustainability in there alongside this as well, because living like this is not sustainable. Not in terms of environmental sustainability, but living from, I was going to say paycheck to paycheck, but that paychecks don't even exist. So living from invoice to invoice is tough, and it's something that does need to be talked about more, and it does need to be addressed.
Yeah, it's in a way, and I'm going to leave it at that. Really, I think in a way it's almost like modern day slavery. Which is sad, which is really sad actually. But let's not end on a sad note. Let's end with thank you so much, Bruno and Harry, for your insights. It's been a very interesting conversation, and I would like, outside of this show, to carry on the conversation. I think there are many issues in ELT, in our profession, that need bit of change, bit of improvement, and I think while it's easier to sweep things under the carpet, or one could say to me, well, you're not affected, you've got your nice cushy job. I am affected because many of my friends, people I admire, people who I know do mega good work. I see them being taken advantage of, and I don't know, maybe I'm naive, and maybe I'm living in a fantasy land, but I don't see how or why teachers who do work, I can understand project-based work, that's absolutely fine, but I think that respect, that just doesn't seem to be there for our friends and our colleagues doing other work in publishing, in exam marking, in freelance teaching, and I would really like for that to change. On that note, that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much, Bruno and Harry, for joining us, for being, both of you, so gracious with your time. And I mean, Bruno, I am well aware that it is now 8 a.m. where you are. So thank you very much. Everyone, you have been listening to The Morning Break. We will be back in 2 weeks. If you have a story to tell or a topic to discuss, anything to do with teachers, teaching, learning, you can find us on social media, drop us a line, and I will possibly have you as my next guest. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.